Heat versus Mavs. This one's got everything you need for a loss that fans can still talk about with a little extra spice in their voice. Miami came into the 2011 finals, rocking their shiny new trio of LeBron James, D. Wade, and Chris Bosh. Expectations weren't just high, they were sky level. People were already handing them rings before the first tip-off. And then they ran into Dallas, a veteran squad that had been overlooked all season and somehow managed to stay underrated, even with Dirk Nowitzki quietly putting up an MVP-level year. The Heat had home court. They had the flash. They had the momentum. But Dallas had the answer. After 6 games, the Mavericks walked off with the franchise's first ever championship, and Miami walked off with the kind of loss that sticks in your highlight reel nightmares. LeBron's scoring average dropped almost 9 full points compared to the regular season, the biggest plunge ever in a finals series. That is not exactly what fans had in mind when they envisioned dominance. The Mavericks didn't just win, they took control. They won 3 straight to close out the series after being down 2-1. That shift was massive. Dallas used zone defense that clogged everything up for Miami, and the Heat just couldn't adjust. Game 6 in Miami was especially brutal. The Mavericks led for the final 22 minutes and had a 21-4 run that completely knocked the air out of the building. Now, for those who enjoy a good storyline twist, this series was perfect. The Big Three were built for domination, but all that hype fizzled when the pressure kicked in. Dallas took both regular season games earlier that year too, so this finals just extended that trend. Miami fans were stuck watching Nowitzki hoist the trophy in their building, while confetti that wasn't meant for them rained down. One of the most talked about moments was Game 4. That's when LeBron got held to just 8 points. That is not a typo. 8 on 3 for 11 shooting. He couldn't get past Jason Kidd or Jason Terry, and neither of those guys were exactly known for locking down the league's top scorer. Dallas hit 13 out of 19 from deep in Game 5. Everything was clicking for them. The satisfaction here doesn't just come from seeing a favorite fall. It's in the way Dallas played. Smart, gritty, unselfish, no shortcuts. Just teamwork, just execution, just results. For fans tired of super teams trying to skip the line, this was a moment to enjoy. The kind of upset that makes a season unforgettable. Cavaliers versus Warriors. There's just something about a historic collapse that sticks in your brain like gum on a sneaker. The Warriors came in with 73 wins, the most in league history. They weren't just favored, they were practically being handed the trophy before the finals even tipped off. They had already won the year before, and now they were expected to cruise through Cleveland and collect their 2nd straight title. But that's not how it played out. Cleveland came in as the underdog, and that's putting it lightly. They dropped the first 2 games by a mile. Game 2 was a 33-point loss. After Game 4, they were down 3-1, and most people figured it was over. But then LeBron James and Kyrie did something absurd. They both dropped 41 points in Game 5. The Warriors were missing Draymond Green, suspended after stacking up flagrant foul points, and Cleveland took full advantage. Game 6, another 41 for LeBron. That one also came with 11 assists, 8 boards, 4 steals, and 3 blocks. It was control. Then Game 7 happened. A grind. A low-scoring slugfest. And when the score was tied 89-89 with under 2 minutes left, LeBron sprinted back and pinned Andre Iguodala's layup off the glass. That play became a legend. A minute later, Kyrie hit the go-ahead 3. Then Kevin Love switched on to Steph Curry and actually stopped him cold on a crucial possession. That was it. Cavaliers won 93-89. Series over. The comeback was complete. And just like that, Cleveland snapped a 52-year championship drought for the city. The Cavaliers became the first team in finals history to come back from a 3-1 deficit and win it all. They also won every playoff series clinching game on the road. First team to do that. This was a reversal with history written all over it. Golden State had set the regular season wins record, but that loss in Game 7 left them without the ring. The whole 73 wins conversation, it lost its shine. Klay Thompson even said it himself. It means nothing without the title. For a lot of fans, that's what made it so satisfying. Watching the most dominant regular season team fall short and watching the Cavaliers, long labeled as cursed, finally finish the job. LeBron led both teams in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. Nobody had ever done that in a finals before. It was a full-blown takeover, sealed on the biggest stage with all the stakes. Lakers, Pistons. This series didn't just flip the script, it chucked the entire Hollywood storyline into a trash can and lit it on fire. The Lakers were loaded. Kobe Bryant, Shaq, Karl Malone, Gary Payton. That's not a lineup, that's a Hall of Fame reunion tour. And yet, in the 2004 finals, they got flat out, handled by a Detroit team that didn't have a single so-called superstar. The Pistons weren't flashy. They were organized, focused, and obsessed with defense. They won 4 games to 1. The Lakers only cracked 90 points once in 5 games. That's not just an upset, that's a systematic takedown. Detroit opened the series by winning on the road, 87-75. Los Angeles tied it in Game 2, but that was the only one they'd get. Game 3, Lakers managed 68 points, 68. That was their lowest ever in a finals game. By Game 4, Detroit had their rhythm locked in. They won 88-80. Then they closed it out in Game 5, 100-87, right there in Detroit. Chauncey Billups took home Finals MVP after averaging around 21 points and over 5 assists. He ran the offense like he had it on a remote control. Meanwhile, the Lakers looked stuck in isolation mode. Kobe averaged over 22 points per game, but his efficiency tanked. The Lakers shot about 41% from the field and didn't even crack 25% from 3. That's a recipe for struggle. The Pistons weren't putting up fireworks either, but they made the Lakers play at their pace. They held Los Angeles to fewer fast break points, committed fewer turnovers, and straight up controlled the tempo. Malone was dealing with a knee injury. Peyton never really fit into the system. And the Lakers bench, pretty much invisible. It was basically the Shaq and Kobe show, except Detroit figured out how to mute it. They doubled smart, rotated faster, and outworked them possession after possession. Every time the Lakers needed a momentum shift, they got stonewalled. The Pistons weren't trying to win with flash. They were trying to squeeze the air out of every possession. And it worked. What made the loss satisfying for some? The underdog theme was strong. A star-stacked team got outplayed by a group that believed in each other and actually played like a unit. No drama, no egos, just execution. This wasn't just a loss for the Lakers. It was a reminder that titles aren't handed out based on names. They're earned on the court. Detroit proved that 5 times over. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Nets versus Bucks. This one had everything you could want in a Game 7. Historic scoring, tight execution, and one unforgettable miss. The Brooklyn Nets were in prime position to take down the Milwaukee Bucks in the 2021 Eastern Conference semifinal. Kevin Durant dropped 48 points, which was the most ever scored in a Game 7. That kind of performance usually ends in a win. This time, it didn't. With 109 points apiece in regulation, Durant launched a deep fadeaway jumper over PJ Tucker. It hit nothing but net. The arena exploded, but when everyone checked the replay, his foot was on the line, just barely. Instead of a game-winning 3, it tied the score. Overtime. And that's when things got weird. Durant got the ball again in the final seconds. Brooklyn was down by 2. He turned, rose, fired, and missed everything. The ball didn't even graze the rim. A complete air ball with the season on the line. Just like that, the Bucks grabbed the rebound and hit the free throws to ice it. Final score, 115-111. That air ball was the last shot the Nets would take that season. This game had all the pressure. Brooklyn was the favorite, stacked with talent, even though injuries had limited Kyrie and James Harden. Durant carried the load, 48 points, nearly 50. He played all 53 minutes, but even with all that, it ended on a shot that just never had a chance. Giannis matched the moment with 40 of his own. He played with force all game, attacking the paint and holding off every Nets run. But let's be honest, most of the spotlight stayed on Durant. That's what made the ending so wild. When a superstar delivers like that, people expect a win. They expect a signature moment. Instead, they got a misfire that became instantly iconic. A lot of fans found this moment satisfying, not because Durant failed, but because it reminded everyone the super teams don't always work. Also, a perfect performance can still come up short. For Milwaukee fans, it was a huge road win, one that would help them later push to the title. For neutral fans, it was drama, legacy tension, and a plot twist, all rolled into one. The airball wasn't just a shot, it was a full stop on a massive storyline. The Nets were supposed to roll. They didn't. 1 inch on the line, 1 shot into the air. That's how quick the entire arc flipped. Sixers, Hawks. This one had top seed energy and home court advantage written all over it until the whole thing unraveled in slow motion. Philadelphia came into the 2021 Eastern Conference semifinals as the #1 seed, stacked with regular season wins and sky-high expectation. Atlanta came in as the #5 seed, which means most people expected them to hang around politely and then exit. Instead, the Hawks left the building with the series in their pocket. It went the full 7 games, but the damage was done long before that final buzzer. Game 1, Atlanta came out swinging and won in Philadelphia, 128-124. That was the first crack. Philly bounced back with a win in Game 2, and then took Game 3 on the road. 2-1 Sixers. Right about there is when things should have shifted in their favor. Instead, the Hawks tied it again with a tight win in Game 4. Game 5 is where the wheels flew off. The Sixers had a 26-point lead, 26, and still lost the game, 109-106. The Hawks stormed back while Philly froze up, and that collapse ended up defining the series more than any stat line. Philly managed to force a Game 7 by winning on the road, but the damage was already baked in. That last game played in Philly, and the Sixers came up short again. Atlanta won 103-96, sending the top seed home. Joel Embiid scored 31 with 11 rebounds, but it was not enough. The Sixers had 17 turnovers to Atlanta's 10. 10 of those came in the first half alone. Add that to another game with shaky bench production and sluggish decision-making, and it was another missed opportunity. Trae Young wasn't perfect in Game 7, but his impact across the series was massive. He averaged 29 points and nearly 11 assists per game. The Hawks moved the ball, trusted their depth, and won 3 times on the road in the series. That's not luck, that's control. People found this loss satisfying for a bunch of reasons. 1, the Sixers were favored and fell to a lower seed, classic underdog joy. 2, the blown leads, especially in Game 5, created a dramatic storyline full of second guessing. And 3, it showed that even the top seed isn't safe when execution falls apart. It's a slow motion unraveling, and Atlanta took full advantage. Thanks to DraftKings Sportsbook for sponsoring this video. Basketball's officially back, and every night feels like a highlight waiting to happen. If you love watching hoops, there's no better way to stay involved in the action than with DraftKings Sportsbook. Here's the offer. New customers bet $5 and get $300 if your bet wins. Paid in bonus bets, plus get 3 months of NBA League Pass no matter what. That means you're catching every dunk, clutch shot, and overtime thriller, even if your first bet doesn't hit. Just sign up using promo code HOOPSEXPLAINED. Make that first $5 bet, and you're in. It's that easy. You'll get to watch games live and use your bonus bets on any upcoming matchups you want. DraftKings makes betting simple and exciting. You can go live mid-game, follow every score in real time, or build same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. And with League Pass included, you'll never miss the moments everyone's talking about the next day. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, sign up using promo code HOOPSEXPLAINED, and start playing today. New customers bet $5 and get $300 if your bet wins, plus 3 months of NBA League Pass no matter what. Clippers versus Nuggets. This was a blown identity. The Clippers entered the 2020 bubble with Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and championship expectations taped to their backs. They finished the regular season with 49 wins and 23 losses. Good for second in the West. Denver right behind them, but nobody expected what happened next. The Clippers jumped out to a 3-1 lead in the series. After Game 4, which they won 96-85, it looked like the Nuggets were cooked. But Game 5 changed the entire mood. The Clippers were ahead again and still lost 111-105. That's where the cracks started to show. Game 6, Los Angeles led by 19 points in the second half and still lost. Another 111 from Denver, only 98 from the Clippers. That tied it up. And then came Game 7, the moment where all the pressure caught up. The Clippers scored just 89 points, got outplayed in the second half, and lost by 15. Series over. The Nuggets became one of the rare teams to come back from a 3-1 deficit. Paul George struggled all series. He shot under 40% from the field and never found his rhythm. Kawhi Leonard had his moments, but couldn't save them in Game 7. The offense collapsed, the energy disappeared, and the Nuggets looked like the ones with purpose. Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic led a team that wasn't supposed to be ready yet, but they were, and they closed it out. This series wasn't just about stats. It was about momentum slipping away 1 quarter at a time. In Game 6, the Clippers gave up a huge second half lead again. Same patterns, same result. By Game 7, the body language said it all. Denver punched first, kept punching, and the Clippers had no answer. They became the team that never got over the hump. Again, for a lot of people, this loss was satisfying. The Clippers had the hype, the stars, and the swagger, but the Nuggets had the heart, the chemistry, and the poise. Watching a so-called super team melt under pressure hits different, especially when they were supposed to coast to the finals. The fallout was immediate. Coach Doc Rivers stepped down within weeks. It was a collapse, a narrative shift, and a massive disappointment. Denver walked through the wreckage with a ticket to the Western Conference Final. The Clippers walked off as the team that let go of a 3-1 lead and watched everything crumble. Celtics versus Heat. This series was the moment the power balance in the East tilted hard. Boston came into the 2010 to 2011 season off a finals run the year before and still had the core of their championship team: Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, and Rajon Rondo. They finished with 56 wins and locked down the 3rd seed. Miami, meanwhile, rolled into the playoffs with 58 wins, a new Big Three, and enough media coverage to power a small country. The matchup was set in the Eastern Conference semifinal, and it felt like a clash between an aging dynasty and a rising force. The Heat didn't waste any time. They took the first 2 games in Miami, winning 99-90 and then 102-91. LeBron James, in particular, looked locked in. He averaged 28 points, 8 rebounds, and nearly 4 assists per game in the series. The Celtics struck back in Game 3 with a solid win, 97-81, giving the series its first real jolt. Game 4 was the turning point. Played in Boston, the game went to overtime. The Heat pulled away late, winning 98-90. That gave them a 3-1 lead and all the momentum. Game 5 in Miami felt like a closing ceremony. The Heat took it 97-87 and wrapped up the series 4-1. The Celtics looked flat down the stretch. They couldn't get consistent production from the bench, and the Heat's athleticism started to wear them down. Boston's usual ball movement wasn't clicking the same way, and Miami's defense got stops when it mattered most. The Celtics had been the team that taught the league how to form a super team, and now their own blueprint had beaten them. For a lot of fans, this loss hit differently. It marked the official end of Boston's dominance and the start of Miami's takeover. Watching the Heat finally take down the Celtics after previous playoff losses and years of narrative buildup felt like a shift that had been brewing for a while. For Heat fans, it was redemption. For Celtics critics, it was closure. There's satisfaction in that kind of transition. The veteran squad getting dethroned by the newer model. The Celtics weren't just beaten, they were passed by. One era faded while another took hold. The Big Three torch wasn't handed off, it was taken. And Miami didn't just take it, they ran with it. Suns versus Mavericks. This was a full-on dismantling, right in front of the home crowd. The Phoenix Suns had just come off a 64-win regular season, the best in the entire league. They were the #1 seed, with home court advantage. Momentum and expectations stacked taller than a Devin Booker fadeaway. And then they faced the Dallas Mavericks in the second round. Things started great. The Suns won Game 1 by 7 and Game 2 by 20. Up 2-0, the path looked clear. Then Luka decided the series wasn't over. The Mavericks tied things up at 2 games apiece after solid wins in Dallas. The Suns punched back in Game 5 with a 30-point blowout win. That should have been the nail. Instead, it woke Dallas up again. Game 6 went to the Mavericks, 113-86. Suddenly, the series was tied 3-3, and all eyes were on Phoenix for the deciding Game 7. And that's where it all fell apart. Dallas didn't just win, they crushed. 123-90, a 33-point blowout. Luka had 35 points by himself. At halftime, he had as many points as the entire Suns team. That's not an exaggeration. Phoenix looked stunned. The #1 seed, at home, in Game 7, couldn't get anything going. Devin Booker and Chris Paul struggled the entire night. The Suns didn't just lose, they got erased. The Mavericks ran their offense clean, locked up defensively, and played like the team with everything to prove. It was the first time Dallas had reached the Western Conference Finals since their title run in 2011, and they did it by tearing down the top seed on their own court. What made this loss satisfying to some fans? First off, the Suns were the favorites, heavy favorites. 64 wins, and the league's best record usually come with banners. Instead, it ended with stunned faces and early exits. The collapse wasn't slow, it was immediate. No fourth quarter drama, just a 33-point statement. It wasn't just a loss for Phoenix, it was a gut check, the kind that resets narratives. Dallas didn't sneak through, they blew the doors off. For fans of underdogs, or those tired of top seed arrogance, this was the perfect twist. One team showed up ready, the other didn't. That's all it took. In Game 7, the top seed didn't just lose, they got wiped out. Heat versus Spurs. This was a basketball clinic. The Miami Heat were coming off back-to-back titles and had their eyes locked on a three-peat. But the San Antonio Spurs showed up with 62 regular season wins, home court advantage, and one of the most surgical offensive systems the league had seen. This was the rematch of the 2013 finals, where the Heat barely survived in 7 games. San Antonio didn't forget. Game 1 opened in San Antonio, and the Spurs set the tone early with a 110-95 win. Miami punched back in Game 2 with a tight win, 98-96. That was the last time they'd win. Game 3 in Miami turned into a showcase. San Antonio hit 75.8% from the field in the first half. the best shooting half in finals history. The Spurs won one, 111-92. Then came Game 4. Miami's home court meant nothing. San Antonio ran them off the floor again, 107-86. That gave the Spurs a 3-1 lead, with all the momentum heading back to Texas. Game 5 was the closing act. The Spurs won 104-87 and took the series 4-1. Miami's three-peat hopes were over. Kawhi Leonard was named Finals MVP. He averaged 17.8 points per game and shot over 61% from the field. He didn't just guard LeBron James, he disrupted the entire flow of Miami's offense, and the scoring margins told the full story. 4 out of 5 games ended in blowouts. San Antonio outscored Miami by an average of 14 points per game, the largest finals margin ever at that point. The Heat's big three, LeBron James, D. Wade, Chris Bosh, never found their groove. LeBron had numbers, but the cohesion that carried Miami in previous runs wasn't there. The Spurs moved the ball with precision. They played unselfish, sharp, mistake-free basketball. While Miami leaned on isolation, San Antonio leaned on system, and the system overwhelmed them. For a lot of people, this loss felt satisfying. It ended Miami's 3-year hold on the league. It avenged the heartbreak of the year before, and it reminded everyone that talent alone doesn't win rings. San Antonio proved that execution, chemistry, and discipline can dismantle even the flashiest lineups. This wasn't just a win, it was a correction. A team first statement made loudly in 5 games. Pistons versus Bulls. This series didn't just close a chapter, it slammed the door on an era. The Detroit Pistons had owned the Eastern Conference for years. They beat the Bulls in 3 straight playoff matchups, including back-to-back Eastern Conference finals in 1989 and 1990. The Bulls were stuck behind a bad boys wall until 1991. The Pistons came in with 50 wins and the 3rd seed. The Bulls had the top seed and home court advantage for the first time in the rival. They didn't waste it. Game 1 started off with the Pistons scoring 13 points in the first quarter. That's not a typo. Chicago jumped ahead and never looked back, winning 94-83. Game 2 followed with a 105-97 Bulls win. The tone was set. Detroit looked flat. The Bulls looked done waiting. Game 3 in Detroit was tight, but the Bulls kept control and took it 113-107. That made it 3-0. Game 4 was the exclamation mark. The Bulls blew the Pistons out by 21, winning 115-94. That sealed the sweep, 4-0. It was the first time the Bulls had ever beaten Detroit in the playoff. But it wasn't just the score that made this series legendary. It was the walk-off. With time still on the clock in Game 4, several Pistons players left the court without shaking hands. No congratulations, no acknowledgement, just a silent exit. It became one of the most talked about moments in the history of the rivalry, and it made the win even more satisfying for Bulls fans. This wasn't a grinded out, down to the wire series. It was a sweep. The Bulls didn't just beat Detroit, they dismantled them. They outscored them, outran them, outdefended them. The Pistons had 13 points in the first quarter of Game 1 and 21 points behind in Game 4. It was a full circle moment. The team that had been beaten up, elbowed, and shut down for years finally took over. For a lot of people, that made the result feel earned. The Bulls didn't squeak by. They made a statement. The Pistons, who built their identity around intimidation, got outplayed in every game, and they walked off before the buzzer, as if the passing of the torch was too painful to watch. It was the end of one reign and the beginning of another. The Bulls would go on to win the title that year, but it all started here, sweeping the team that wouldn't let them through, and finally, breaking through in dominant fashion. Nets versus Celtics. This was a reality check. Brooklyn came into the 2022 playoffs as the 7th seed, but with expectations much bigger than that. With stars like Kevin Durant and Kyrie, the Nets were built to contend, not bow out early. But Boston had other plans. The Celtics finished the regular season with 51 wins, earned the 2nd seed, and came in with one of the best defenses in the league. Game 1 was the warning shot. Brooklyn had a late lead, but Jason Tatum cut through the lane, spun past defenders, and hit a game-winning layup as time expired. Celtics took it 115-114. Game 2 saw Boston win 114-107. They didn't need any buzzer beaters that time. The defense tightened, and the Nets couldn't close. Game 3, back in Brooklyn, ended 109-103 in favor of the Celtics. The pattern repeated. Tight contest, but the Nets couldn't finish. Game 4, same story. Boston sealed it, 116-112, completing the sweep on Brooklyn's home floor. The Nets became the only team that postseason to get swept in the first round. This wasn't a blowout-filled series. The average margin of victory was around 5 points. That's what made it sting more. The games were within reach. The Nets just didn't capitalize. Durant and Kyrie were held in check by a Boston defense that rotated fast, switched smart, and never let either star get fully comfortable. Brooklyn entered the year with title aspiration, but their regular season was a mess. Injuries, trades, off-court distractions, all of it added up. By the time the playoffs came, they had no rhythm. Meanwhile, Boston had chemistry, defense, and momentum, and they used all three. What made this satisfying to some fans was how cleanly it undercut the super team idea. The Nets were supposed to dominate through raw star power. Instead, they got outworked by a cohesive, disciplined roster that trusted the system. The Celtics didn't overwhelm the Nets with talent, they just executed better every time. Each game had what-if moments for Brooklyn, but the results never changed. 4 games, 4 losses. A team with expectations exited without a single win. For fans, tired of roster building, shortcuts, or constant media hype, this was the kind of poetic ending they could appreciate. No miracle comebacks, no superstar takeovers, just a quiet sweep that sent a loud message. Rockets versus SuperSonics. This was a sudden dethroning. The Houston Rockets had just won back-to-back titles in 1994 and 1995. They entered the 96 playoffs with a shot at the elusive three-peat, but by the end of 4 games, that goal was gone, buried under a wave of Seattle's energy, defense, and control. The Rockets had finished the regular season with 48 wins, sliding into the 5th seed in the West. Seattle had the top seed after a 64-win season, and they were ready. Game 1 set the tone. The SuperSonics blew the Rockets off the floor, 108-75. That 23-point beatdown was a shock. It was the kind of loss that sticks to a team's confidence. Game 2 was closer, but Seattle still pulled it out, 105-101. Then came Game 3 in Houston. The Rockets were desperate, but Seattle stayed locked in. Final score, 115-112. That made it 3-0, and that's when everyone knew the series was slipping away fast. Game 4 was the final strike. Houston forced overtime, but couldn't hold it together. Seattle went on a 9-0 run in the extra period and closed it out, 114-107. Sweep complete. The defending champs were out. Just like that, 4-0. The Rockets were led by Hakeem, but even he couldn't tilt the balance. Seattle had momentum, depth, and control. Gary Payton, Shawn Kemp, and the rest of the Sonics ran their system to perfection. Their net rating over the series was around +12, a number that reflects how lopsided things were. Houston didn't just lose close games, they were outplayed, outshot, and outlasted. And it wasn't a slow unravel, it was a door slamming shut. This wasn't a buzzer beater series or a what-if scenario, it was a clear, clean reversal. For some fans, that's exactly what made this outcome satisfying. The Rockets had dominated the league for 2 years. Seeing that dominance halted so sharply was a reminder that no team stays on top forever. Seattle didn't just win the series. They erased the reigning champs from the bracket without letting them catch a breath. They healed. Margins, the moments, the message, all of it added up to a series that felt like a page turning. One team fell off the throne and the SuperSonics rose. The sweep wasn't just about 4 wins. It was about saying loudly that the West had a new order. Raptors, 76ers. This series ended with one of the most iconic shots in playoff history. Toronto came in as the 2nd seed after 58 wins. Philadelphia had 51 and the 3rd seed. Expectations were high. The matchup delivered. Game 1 started with the Raptors taking control, winning 108-95. Game 2 flipped. The 76ers responded with a 94-89 win. Then came Game 3 in Toronto, and Philadelphia took a 16-point win, 116-95. That gave the Sixers a 2-1 lead, and the pressure shifted. Game 4 was a bounce back for Toronto. Kawhi Leonard scored 39 points, including a clutch 3 with about a minute left, and the Raptors tied the series with a 101-96 win. Game 5 was a blowout. Toronto crushed Philadelphia, 125-89. Pascal Siakam had 25 points, and Leonard added 21 with 13 rebounds. That put the Raptors ahead 3-2. Philadelphia pushed it to 7 by winning Game 6, 112-101. That set the stage for a Game 7 in Toronto, a tight, defensive, low-scoring grind. Kawhi Leonard shot 16 for 39 and scored 41 points. The 76ers tied it at 90 with about 4 seconds left when Jimmy Butler drove coast to coast for a layup. Timeout. 1 shot left. The final play was simple. Leonard caught the ball in the corner, dribbled, faded, and lawned. The ball bounced once, twice, 3, 4 times, and fell. 92-90. Raptors win the series. It was the first Game 7 buzzer beater in NBA history. The 76ers committed 17 turnovers in that game. Joel Embiid went 6 for 18 from the field. They had chances, but the Raptors executed when it mattered most. That loss didn't just knock Philadelphia out, it left a mark. They had a 2-1 lead and still fell. They had the ball with the chance to win or force overtime. They let it slip. Why is this loss satisfying to some? It showed how close and yet how far the 76ers were. It wasn't a blowout. It was heartbreak by inches. It wasn't just a defeat, it was a collapse, framed by a legendary shot. And for those skeptical of Philadelphia's roster construction or late-game reliability, this series became a symbol of unrealized potential. The Raptors moved on and eventually won the title. The 76ers went home. That final shot didn't just end the series, it sealed the narrative. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.